Pixie Plane of Existence, Chapter 7, Small Things. Dasakata heard the pixie horns going off again. When any pixie heard them, they knew to get immediately to the safety of the willow. She wondered what was happening as she put down her twig bundle and fluttered toward the entrance. The furniture maker would just have to wait until later for his delivery. She saw Pjelavin just ahead and flapped her wings a little faster to catch up to him. Priva, Pjelavin. Tем snayam shtom nipravadam. Hello, Pjelavin. Do you know what's wrong? Dasakata was very nervous. Was the girl headed toward the willow again? Lost in thought, she was startled when he touched her. He grabbed her hand and pulled her out even faster toward the entrance of the willow. She struggled to keep the light in her chest from flickering. Unfortunately, when they got near the top branch, there was a bottleneck because so many of the pixies were trying to get in at the same time. It was difficult to not get hit by the fluttering of wings of others as everyone was so closely packed together. Daha, Pjelavin replied. Mina slishala gnome atakava. Yes, I heard that the gnomes attacked. Dasakata was shocked. Gnomes attacking? They lived peacefully alongside of them for centuries. Their neighbors had been in alliance with them to keep the woodland creature existence a secret from humankind. It made no sense. Furthermore, they'd just had their mating season. The female gnomes had traveled from a far-off area of the forest to deliver the fertilized pods for safekeeping. Similar to penguins, the males needed to collect food for winter and hibernate with their pods so the new ones could emerge in the spring. Then the females would come to collect the little ones to raise and return sons of a certain age to live in the shteta. Why would they jeopardize an entire generation? Kutum anikraskastiem, kutum bilam anikatakava. Who told you they did? Who were they attacking? Pjelavin didn't answer her. It was their turn to go into the entrance and then immediately to their homes. Once inside, Dasakata made her way up the dark and winding trunk to her branch. Pjelavin's home was the opposite direction. He waved to her when she looked down at him and then was lost in the horde of pixies. It was almost dark, and it was their custom to go to bed when the sun set. She yearned to find out more information, but she also needed to determine if her parents were safe. She sighed in relief upon seeing her mother, her light burning a little brighter. Ma'am, mina radak vidatim. Mom, I'm glad to see you. They hugged, and she could see the worry in her mother's eyes. She knew something. Her mother had always had the same forbidden fascination for humans. A humanifilka, a human lover. Dasakata studied her face for a clue to her emotions. She immediately started asking her mother a flurry of questions. Radak? Nomatakavat pixie? Pachinemyam. It's true? Gnomes attacking pixies? Why, Mom? The questions exploded from her lips, leaving Ministar to wring her hands and fret. She wasn't sure what to tell Dasakata. Nothing of this sort had ever happened between them and the gnomes. Ministar reassured her. Ajara jesnimin budeta znatska delatska. Queen will know what to do. The queen of the pixies always had the answers. For tonight, they were safe in the willow. All the branches were quiet as they hid and contemplated the events of the day. Dasakata's Dyadak arrived shortly after she and her Myam had discussed what had happened. He paced pensively back and forth, but said nothing to his Jenak, wife, and De, daughter. Dasakata tried to rest and concentrate on her brief encounter with Pjelavin, but she couldn't seem to close her purple eyes. She yearned for the daylight and its answers. All the work getting ready for the splashata was halted. Ajara Jessamine had spent many hours with her advisors and had learned of the fatalities of 2 elder and prominent pollen collectors. It was a great loss to their community. Lejikar and Sumatak had gone outside of the great meadow in search of more late-blooming flowers to make up for the shortage. They had ventured near the brook, which had never been a problem before. It was different this time. The gnomes were hostile. The gnomes had been collecting their acorns, getting ready for their own winter hiding, Sumatek reported before perishing. They had not recognized them as allies, and their eyes had turned black as night. Their leader, Kenkros, had ordered the attack. He was jealous and angry about their flying, and had called them horrible things, mutated bats and such. The Ajara grew more concerned as the story was recounted for her. Black eyes? The gnomes had always bright blue eyes. Their likeness could still be seen in human yard statues. The pixies would tease them and jest about this, and it was one of their many long-running jokes. Why would her old friend turn on her so suddenly? She and Kenkros had helped each other for nearly 15 life cycles. The gnomes and pixies do not age as humans do. They live much longer than the changelings, shifters, and humans. For every 9 years in human time, they grow older by 1 cycle. Therefore, a pixie can be a century or more and still be considered quite young in their life cycle. Something was very amiss. It was imperative that she speak with Kenkros. She didn't know if she would be able to do this without creating an army first. The pixie needed brave young ones to scout the gnomes, to know how dangerous things were for them. The answer of why their friends had turned on them would have to wait until they were out of immediate danger. Ajara Jessamine reasoned that if they knew what they were facing, then they could find a solution. Kenkros had always been a sensible yet strong leader. Using all of her wisdom, Ajara Jessamine decided to keep her pixies in the willow and send out scouts to report the happenings of the gnome village. Depending on the information received, she would meet Kenkros on his turf. The male gnome settlement was underneath the bridge on the banks of the brook. To enter their homes, they'd built a pulley system that moved a large boulder. Once inside, there was a narrow earth-filled corridor that led into a maze of interconnected common spaces and homes. It was similar to the willow, only underground and surrounded by rocks. Mawaki nadak nazivata streche madalak pixie, maui nadak brave pixie, she announced. We must call out a meeting for all pixies. We need brave pixies. Some of the elders were startled to hear the human word brave, but she needed to make a point that this was a serious matter. Although the Pazdara had been disbanded by her great elder, Ajara Jessamine had not let her knowledge of the human plane disappear. An old trusted friend still held the knowledge of their language. The violent murder of Sumatak was recounted for all the council members, and it was agreed. They would ask for a few volunteers to scout the gnomes' territory and report on their doings. If it were true that they were preparing for a war against them, she would be forced to defend her creatures. They would train an army and defend the willow. The very thought terrified her. Pixies had not been at war since they removed themselves from the knowledge of humans and had banished the changelings from the woodland. That had taken place many luna ago, at the time of the Wikanka burnings. Jessamine had been merely a princerin. She witnessed the brutal extermination of Wikanka, shifters, and changeling alike by the humans, which caused the banishment of them from their realm. As the centuries passed, they forgot that magic existed on account of their short lives and even shorter memories. Most people didn't even keep track of their lines, strangers to their own ancestors. Thinking about the regretful divorce from humankind, Jessamine ruminated on their current circumstances. Perhaps this misunderstanding with the gnomes could be solved through diplomatic means. Perhaps the pixie had a broken gnome law somehow offended them into an attack. In her heart, she knew this wasn't true. She stretched her wings. There were no other options. It was her duty to solve the issue as quickly and peacefully as possible, even if it meant sacrificing justice for Sumatak and Lejakar. If they could avoid a conflict with the gnomes, as a Jara, she would forgive their transgressions. Although she risked the respect of her realm, she had no illusions that they were not facing serious danger. It was paramount that she send her best and bravest to gather information on Kenkros and the Shteta. The Pixie would lose precious days of preparation for the Splishata, but it was the only decision she could make. The communicators were ordered to go to each home and inform her fairies to meet at the Bolcha Devarak, Great Hall, at sunrise. Weary, she retired to her ornate quarters and collapsed on her bed. It was made from an abandoned bird's nest and stuffed with cotton from a human mattress, and the quilt was a beautifully embroidered handkerchief. Even surrounded in the luxury of her chamber, she could not rest. Her worry and confusion visited her dreams, strange, haunting visions of black eyes. In the morning, she looked at her reflection in the miniature mirror from a makeup compact that had been left in the wood by careless teenagers. Dark blue circles pooled under her golden eyes. It was important that she displayed courage, so her maiden fairies brushed her golden hair into an intricate hairstyle. Jessamine adorned herself with a human bracelet that was wrapped around her head thrice to create a beautiful golden crown. It was rarely worn, only at the most important occasions. She finished by having her maidens dress her in a long skirt made from golden corn silk. It was very formal. Usually pixies wore short dresses and pants made from hardy petals, leaves, and grass. The clothing designers were an important part of their society, forever finding new materials to design comfortable and durable clothing, sometimes recycling human-made doll clothes, those being the most expensive, of course. The lead communicator appeared at her chamber. Lishka informed her that all had been summoned to the Bolcha Devarak, Great Hall, and were awaiting her appearance. Jessamine glided down the winding staircase, carefully ordering her thoughts. When she arrived to the cheer of her pixies, she narrowed her golden eyes and steadied herself in preparation to ask for scouts. This had never been asked of the pixies in this life cycle. Her chest light flickered faintly. She had hoped it would never be asked of them. A hush fell over them as her voice rang out clear. Priva mina Pixie! Dasakata stood near her parents and scanned the crowd until she had a clear view of Pielovin. He had a pained face. Dasakata felt horrible for him. Pielovin's eldest brother, Sumatak, had worked extremely hard to earn the dangerous position of pollen collector, and it was only his first season. Now his last. Nothing would prepare her for the words that came from her Arjara next. Mina sprashivaka mina Pixie ochenek mlad. Maui ishtak nomshteta umenatka obakink ros. I have to ask my Pixie for the bravest young. We must scout the gnome village and determine Kenkros's intentions. A hush fell over the entire gathering of pixies. This was a very dangerous venture that she was proposing. Everyone knew that the gnomes had behaved with hostility, but nobody knew why. The bravest of their kind would have to find the answer to this question. Dasakata saw many of the young pixies from all of the most coveted professions offer themselves. Consequently, they also happened to be the most dangerous positions. They were mostly honey thieves and pollen collectors. Some were the offspring of council members. Dasakata gasped when she saw Pielovin make his way through the crowd to stand in the line of volunteers in front of Ajara. "Nyam, Pielovin," she whispered to herself. Her Myam saw the worried look on her dazed face and squeezed her hand. "Onk, onchenak Pixie, mina vida tiem pachemak libla unk." He is a brave pixie. I see why you like him. Dasakata's chest flickered a little when her Myam said that to her. There was no hiding her feelings about him from Ministara. Dasakata was momentarily distracted by her embarrassment, but soon recovered her composure. The crowd started cheering wildly. She couldn't hear what the Ajara was saying because the hollering was echoing in her ears, and they were so far back. It was clear that all of the pixies were offering their support to the brave new professionals, the Mlad Ochanak, brave young. She had to talk to Pelivan before he went on his mission. She had to let him know of her intention to partner with him. Dasakata had hoped to wait longer before sharing her feelings, but in an instant the ritual of a long courtship had faded. This was love in a dangerous time, and old-fashioned customs seemed insignificant. After they were dismissed from the Bolcha Devarak, the new soldiers went outside the willow to their branches to celebrate their newfound status, their chests glowing proudly as the Miziku pixies played on their drums, horns, and pipes. Many of the Mlad Onka, young females, raised their voices in song, accompanying the instruments. The happy harmonies wafted through the air. Pixies were generally sleeping in their branches at this hour, but the Ajara let the celebration continue. Dasakata searched the many clusters of pixies for Pielavin's face. She found him with Nasmaiga, the sister of Lejakar. He was drunk on too much honey wine and too little pollen. Nasmaiga was holding his hands in hers, crooning how brave he was and how much she missed Lejakar. They were commiserating over their lost lines. Her chest was glowing, and her chartreuse hair and golden eyes glimmered with beauty, golden coloring indicating a lineage of nobility. There was a legend that the gold came from a vicious battle between a humongous queen bee, nearly the size of a pixie, and Jessamaiga Pelastara, doubly named for her Myam and Yadak. Jessamaiga Pelastara defeated the queen bee, whilst caught stealing honey. However, she was stung and near death. Succumbing to a grave illness, it was thought that her life cycle would end. She emerged victorious, however, but her eyes had changed to the color of honey, never before present in this species. The mutation caused her line to carry on this gene, and it resurfaced unpredicted in many lines, not yet in Dasakata's. Dasakata's face fell, her intentions dashed. Nasmaiga was declaring to him she wanted to partner. Of course, it was Pelivan's choice whether or not to accept. Dasakata immediately turned away. She flew in the other direction, her eyes stinging from tears, and her heart bursting from the thought of him with another. She hadn't noticed that Pelivan caught a glimpse of her fleeing from the corner of his eye. He abruptly removed his hands from Nasmaiga's. Dasakata couldn't wait to get into her branch and curl up in her hammock. She didn't want to think about the next day's events when the Mlad Uchanak were sent out to the Gnome Stepa. She stewed bitterly in her hammock. The chance to tell Pelivan how she felt for many Luna had been interrupted by the intentions of another. It was forbidden to interfere if another female pixie made her wishes known to partner. Now the decision was only for Pelivan to make. It was true. Nasmaiga was beautiful, she was kind, and she came from a good line. Pollen collectors, council members, instructors, and even pranksters, though not officially highly regarded, but often revered, were part of her ancestry. The instructors and pollen collectors gave her line the most strength, intelligence, and brawn, plus bravery on both accounts. Anyone dealing with securing food or educating the younglings was very much respected in the community. Then, of course, there were the sporadic appearances of golden eyes. Although she knew that Pelivan must make his own decision, she wished greatly to have words with him, if just to say goodbye. This would never be acceptable when he was in waiting. Interference carried severe penalties, and for good reason. There were so many mismatches of partnerings that had been avoided because of this. The Miam, De, and Seistrak had controlled the formation of the Pixie line with careful consideration to create the strongest partnerships and best matches in order to make the best offspring. It was a fundamental right that was not to be interrupted. Still, there were words that must be said, and before the light. Thanks for listening.